Hey Johnny, how you
Hey,
doing?
hey, Scott.
Heard you had a pretty good week last week.
Wasn't half bad, man. Almost first place.
How much money did you win there?
It was $2,000 cash for that one.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Power Hour podcast. It's week 3 preseason. After every slate of games, me and Johnny been dropping some money in, and then the next day we report our winnings. The first week we both doubled up. Last week I doubled up, and Johnny won a cool 2 grand. Pretty impressive.
It's been fun, man. Preseason this season has been fun for sure.
Big shout out to Evan Silva, who came on last week. I got super drunk, mispronounced everyone's names. It's pretty embarrassing. Sober this week, but it was awesome. Due to his recommendations, we both made a lot of money, and I know a bunch of you guys did too.
Yeah, man. It was fun to have Elvin Silva on the pod.
Oh man, yeah. So that's been like that was like a crazy moment for us. Getting Evan Silva on, who was like a billion followers, guy we both admire and respect a lot. We started out doing this last season, and pretty much no one watched. It was like the last 8 weeks or so we did it, and we had like 6 very devout followers, and like that. But that was it. And everyone was like, "Oh, you put on a great show. Like you're making me so much money." Like that one dude won like 5 grand last year. It's like, you guys are great. How come more people don't watch you? And we're like, we don't know. But yeah, it's really cool to like finally get a following, to get guys like Rummy and Matt Harmon and Evan Silva on. It's like really cool. Johnny, did you want to tell a bunch of our new followers about kind of how we met and how the podcast has grown? Because I feel like a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, so Scott and I both wrote a wide receiver versus cornerback article last year, and Scott loved to come and like big time me on my article and just talk it up.
All right.
And
Well,
then I finally found out that Scott wasn't as old as his Avi, and then things continued on from there.
well, all right. To be fair, I had like 300 followers, and you had like 150, so that makes me better than you. And it's like a really tough article to write. Like wide receiver, like today, even people were like, "Wow, the Browns have a great starting 3 wide receivers of Terrell Pryor, Corey Coleman, Josh Gordon." It's like, okay, well, like who's the slot out of that trio? Like people just don't think that far ahead. They think like Richard Sherman will line up against Larry Fitzgerald in the slot, which just doesn't happen.
Unless you're the person who took over my article at Number Fire.
So I finally read your article. I'm like, holy shit, this dude knows what he's talking about. So I followed you. You had like awesome advice. We would talk each week about different wide receivers we like due to cornerback matchups. We would chat a ton, and I'm like, oh man, this dude's super smart. And I was getting destroyed in DFS the first few weeks, and then you were like, you can finish the story.
Oh, well then Scott's process for the most part was just not good. He loved to put all of his money in every single week and
Yeah.
play as crazy of plays as he wanted to, and we tweaked it and got Scott back on track. But now, then we started the podcast that happened once or twice a week, and mostly talked, or happened once every 2 weeks or so last year, but now we're here to do it every week and try and give the best recommendations we can.
This is a beautiful story, John.
Yeah,
I just
man.
want to say, like you're my podcast partner and my DFS partner, but like now you're also like my life partner, like walking through life with me. More than just that. You've been over my house. You want to
It's
talk
true.
about my birthday?
Did meet Scott, went to his birthday party. Everyone just got really drunk. Pretty much exactly this as you see on the podcast is real life.
The entire town wanted to fight us. We met a stripper. We played basketball with strangers at 3 a.m. We went whitewater rafting in a hurricane. Is all of that true, Johnny?
It's true. It's true.
It's all true. All right, people don't care about us anymore. I'm sure the chat's crazy right now. You just jump into the slate. We're on preseason week 3, which typically means this is the week that starters play the most they do all preseason. Just looking at week 3 last season, the top scorers among all receivers were Rashad Ross, Martavis Bryant, Fred Williams, Jeremy Maclin, and Golden Tate, all in the top 5. And then in the top 10, you also had Eric Decker, Jalen Strong, Jeff Janis, and Alan Hearns. So really, it looks like you want to play starters who are going to see a lot of snaps, or really athletic rookies, or Rashad Ross. Does that sound right, Johnny?
Yeah, I mean, you really, the first 2 weeks, you're really kind of looking for guys who you think are just going to play, guys who might not make the team, guys who are going to just play a ton in the second half, and just guys that are camp standouts and or maybe auditioning for trades or whatever. But then week 3 is kind of when you think of as what they would call the dress rehearsal for teams, where they are trying out new plays, sort of seeing where guys are going to work, possibly seeing 2 receivers who are competing for like a 2-3 role, or even a running back who's competing for like a third down or a goal line role. So you're looking at guys who are actually going to be viable regular season contributors versus a guy who is the 7th string wide receiver who you're playing in week 1. You're not going to be doing that this week.
Yeah, I pretty much wholeheartedly agree. You want to just jump right into this thing?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right, first game up is Patriots at the Carolina Panthers. I recommended Jimmy Garoppolo last week and got kind of lucky with a Brett Hundley injury. It turned out to be a pretty solid play. Me and Johnny were just talking before the show. He thinks Jimmy's been terrible. He kind of has in the red zone. He's also gotten unlucky in the red zone with some Blunt touchdowns and some Gaffney touchdowns. But he's leading all preseason quarterbacks in passing yards. He's top 3 in snaps. But last week, Brady was supposed to play, but he cut himself with a pair of scissors or something. Johnny, what are you hearing? Is Brady going to play at all?
So there's really not a whole – I mean, the Patriots are a team that you really don't hear a whole lot from until the night, the day of, the night of. But the thing that's nice about the Patriots is in the preseason, completely opposite of what they are in the regular season. If they tell you someone's going to play 2 or 3 quarters or whatever it is, it usually happens. I mean, they are honest in the preseason. So what you really want to look for is how much Garoppolo is going to play. I mean, Garoppolo is a guy who could play 4 quarters tomorrow, and it wouldn't shock me at all. But he's also a guy that could play just the first half because they want to, start preserving him a little bit for the regular season as well. So he's someone you really want to monitor, because 4 quarters of Garoppolo is great, but 2 quarters of Garoppolo is not, when there are actual legitimate starting caliber quarterbacks who are also going to be playing 2 or 2.5 quarters tomorrow as well.
I think that makes sense. If you're going to have starters playing well into the third quarter, if we don't see any light being shed on this situation, it kind of makes sense to target the quarterbacks who are good if they're available. I guess the running back situation, Blunt has been a super sneaky play so far, and if the starters do see more work, it makes sense. He might be an even better play this week. So far, he's rushed the ball 20 times, has 89 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Gaffney, meanwhile, has the same amount of carries with 6 more rushing yards, 1 fewer rushing touchdown, but he's also gone 5 for 18 through the air.
So the thing about the Patriots that's really interesting for this week is that we find out Dion Lewis is going to be missing time. And the guy who's probably going to replace him is Scott's favorite all-time running back ever, James White. So there's a good chance that we may see a lot of White. And White's one of those guys who is solid enough that if he's going to get some run in a preseason game, he's going to probably be better than a lot of second stringers or whatever he's facing later in the game. But the Gaffney thing is interesting because it seemed like they were really interested in this kid, and then last week he got, what did he get, 3 or 4 goal line chances in a row, Scott, and he just looked like total ass on all of them. He had no push. He should have scored. He just didn't. And he came out of the game, and Blount went back in. So that was definitely a big negative for him. And I think Gaffney is probably going to be popular again, but I'm not so sure of how much he's going to get. I think we might see a lot of Blount and White tomorrow.
So you stole my my super sneaky play, which is James White, the guy whose PFR page I've sponsored. Do you know who's second on the Patriots in preseason targets right now? James White.
I'm guessing it's James White.
That's right. And then in 2015, he had 8 targets, which was second best on the team. And he went 7 for 93 through the air, and then also second in carries with 27 last year. So I do agree. I think he's a sneaky play. I also like Blount a little bit more than Gaffney. I think they're both probably in play this week, especially if you believe in their – maybe if you hear Brady's playing, I'd bump up Blount a little bit more just because he could run in one of those touchdowns with the first team.
I just want to say, dude, Romo's hurt.
Wait, what?
The game started 10 minutes ago. Romo is hurt.
Oh, my God. Already?
Yes.
Ugh.
So, well, right. Christo, who just asked what we're drinking tonight, we're gonna pour one out for Tony Romo's back.
And all my Romo shares. I can't think about this right now. Wide receivers, I think there's maybe only one person in play, and even then, not really. Reports are Amendola is going to be on the PUP to start the season. Malcolm Mitchell had that pretty gruesome, at least appearing injury. And then there's Aaron Dobson, who's second in the NFL in preseason snaps right now. Apparently he's fighting for a roster spot. Went 6 for 4 for 37 last week. Any interest in Dobson?
Yeah, so I wrote down 2 wide receivers for the Patriots who are probably the only 2 that I'm looking at. One a little more, and Scott knows who my boy is over there. But yeah, I think Dobson's interesting because Dobson has been on like the second team with Jimmy Garoppolo for like forever. So there's definitely chemistry there, and that's something big in preseason too. And he's always been like supposedly talented, and that's kind of what I look for on a guy who might be on the roster bubble who's going to get a lot of run, is if he has talent, and Dobson does. So if he gets the targets, then he should do something. And Edelman is out. He's unlikely to play. I doubt Gronk plays. So I think we're going to see a lot of Dobson. And then if you want to go ahead and switch over to my other popular boy over there, is going to be the great white hope, Chris Hogan.
Ooh, forgot about Hogan. It's not a bad call.
Yeah, so Hogan has been the most targeted wide receiver by Jimmy Garoppolo in training camp scrimmages or training camp, whatever it is. I don't know. There was a report came out this week or last week, and he looked absolutely dominant last week when he was on the field. He didn't play a whole lot, but he was heavily targeted. He was really effective. And Hogan's probably one of my, and this may be homerism because I'm a huge Hogan fan, but he may be my top wide receiver play on tomorrow's slate, because I think now that he's healthy, he's going to get a ton of run with Garoppolo, just on the off chance that Edelman's not ready by week 1.
All right. I think that's a good kind of sneaky call. The guy that I think is uber mega chalk this week is AJ Derby. And shout out to Pat Thorman, who wrote an article for PFF earlier today. Made a really great case for him. He is PFF's highest graded tight end this preseason, and he leads all tight ends in targets, catches, yards, and is tied for the most touchdowns. Gronk's not going to play no matter what. He hasn't played for the last 3 or 4 preseasons. Pat's run a lot of 2 tight end sets. I think he's going to get a ton of run this week, and I think he's good, solid enough talent and a great play.
Yep. So I'm in on Derby. I was in on Derby last week too, and Derby was, I think, one of the highest scoring players and just on the whole slate. Yeah, I'm in on Derby and I'm in on Martellus Bennett. I think we probably see a good bit of both of them. I think one should play the Gronk role and one should play the Bennett role, because that's something that is going to exist. Week 1 in the season, they're going to be using 2 tight ends. So I think we're going to see Derby and Bennett both playing a lot this week. I think we're going to see a lot of Hogan, a lot of Dobson, a lot of Derby, and a lot of Martellus Bennett. And I think they're all viable.
I'm actually looking that up right now. I think that's a good point. AJ Derby ranks 19th among tight ends in snaps. Martellus Bennett ranks 13th.
Yeah.
Derby
He's played a lot.
Leads in targets with 11. Then Bennett is tied for 6th with 6.
Yeah. They've both been on. Bennett has played way more than I ever expected in the preseason. And if he's played a lot in weeks 1 and 2, he's definitely going to play in week 3. So I would want exposure to both of those guys. And I think they're two of the top tight end plays probably.
Yeah. I think there's one more, but we'll get to him in a little bit.
Yeah, there's some other tight ends who I'm interested in too, for sure.
All right, so they're up against the Panthers, and reports are that their starters will play into the third quarter. So this is kind of what we were alluding to with Garoppolo. Cam is the uber mega QB chalk this week.
Yep.
It's just so hard not to play the number 1 fantasy quarterback last year in preseason, playing probably more than anyone else up against backup defenses. Fairly right now, I don't know. I have to look and see if any starters going to play more, but it looks like I'm going to have like at least 75% ownership in Cam.
Cam is the chalk for sure.
Yeah.
Anytime you get and so in preseason, rushing points for quarterbacks are worth way more than they are in the regular season, just because quarterbacks score so many fewer points in the preseason. So a couple rushes and a touchdown pretty much hits you at value. And that's, Cam is really the only guy that you're going to get that with on this slate. And I think Garoppolo is going to be popular just because he did so well for people last week. Whereas I think Cam is the better play in this game, especially if Cam is going to get 2.5. I would rather have 2.5 quarters of Cam than 3.5 quarters of Jimmy Garoppolo. And it's not even close.
Yeah. So the question then is, who do you pair him with?
So that's what was interesting is I believe the Panthers game was first last week when it started at 3:00. I don't know. I watched that piece of shit game for like 45 minutes, which is absolute torture to only have one preseason game on at a time. And it looked like Kelvin and Funchess and Ginn were all three fairly involved right off the bat. But Kelvin was definitely the guy who was getting the early targets from Cam. So especially as a guy that everyone and their mother hates, I think he's probably going to have lower ownership than he probably should for this game. And I think Devin Funchess is going to be super, super popular, but Funchess is still operating as the wide receiver 3. So Ginn and Benjamin are going to see more snaps with Cam, and I think you can probably use both of them. I would prefer them to Funchess, but I think you can play all 3.
I'm looking it up right now. Benjamin ran 7 routes last week, and he got 2 targets. So,
Did they not count? Did one of them not count? I think he had 3.
Could be.
I don't know, but that's fine. He wasn't on the field for very long, but he was definitely the guy who Cam was throwing the ball to when he was there.
Ginn had 1 target, but with Ginn, that's kind of what happens with Ginn. So that 1 target went for 61 yards and a touchdown, which is very Ted Ginn-like. You also could have dropped it and done nothing for your fantasy day. Another guy I'm hearing a lot about is this guy, Kevin Norwood. I think it's Kevin Norwood. Apparently he's been popping in camp all week. Last week he had 4 targets, went 3 for 31 with a touchdown. Any interest in Norwood? Or are you sticking with that starting duo?
No, Norwood is a guy who is tough to kind of figure out, because if we knew for a fact, Funchess wasn't going to play in the slot or something like that, then I think Norwood would come into play. But I'm guessing Norwood is not going to come in the game until one of those 3 is done for the day. So not really digging him. But, if we hear that one of those 3 is going to sit for whatever reason, then I would be in on Norwood. But if Cam's going to play 3 quarters, then Norwood's going to get a quarter and a half in the third and the fourth? Not really all that stoked about him.
And so the starting trio then is Benjamin on the outside, Ginn on the outside, and then Funchess in the slot? I
think probably Funchess and Ginn are probably both splitting slot and outside snaps.
Okay. But, and Philly Brown is hurt, right?
Didn't he got hurt last week, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Or is his name's Corey Brown, right? Yeah. He's still out of practice. And okay. Greg Olsen has just come back to practice. I can't imagine Greg Olsen's going to play much.
No.
I just don't see it. They're trying to figure out what's going on with the wide receiver core. They know what Olsen is. They have really no reason to play him a whole lot. So not really in on Olsen.
He wasn't even a full participant, I think, in the most practice either.
And even if he plays, I don't see him playing a whole lot. And I think if he does play, people might be in on him, and I would not use him at all.
What about the running backs? The leader in carries is Brandon Weger with 17. He also has 2 targets. And then the next closest is Cameron Artis-Payne with only 8 carries and also 2 targets. But Weger's only averaged 2.1 yards per carry. Then I guess also if Cam's playing 3 quarters, there's the risk that he kind of vultures one in, which he's been known to do. I'm guessing you're off all these running backs here?
Yeah, there's just so much uncertainty. It's like they know that Stewart is the guy, and there's really not a whole lot of reason for them to play him much. So I don't foresee myself using Stewart. And then you've got Fozzie, CAP, and Weger all sort of competing for like the scraps. So good luck figuring out. You're kind of hoping for a touchdown between 3 guys, and I'm not really gonna look to try and figure that out. So I'm probably not touching this running back group at all, unless we hear that, like, if they were to like cut someone tomorrow or something, and that opens up a spot, but I doubt it.
Okay, so if you have a ton of Cam, what are your main stacks? Benjamin, Ginn, Funchess, are you mixing?
Yeah, I'm probably leaning Benjamin as my guy who I want to stack him with, but I'm probably also going to have a lot of naked Cam, because that's a confusing wide receiver group to figure out.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on to the Buffalo Bills at the Washington.
I just want to say,
yeah,
if we hear that Brady's not going to play and Jimmy's only going to play a half, then the Panthers are the top defense on the slate. Because the guy after Garoppolo is terrible.
All right, we'll see. We'll look at some more defenses as we go along. Next up, we have the Bills at the Redskins. Looks like the Mike Rodak, ESPN's Buffalo beat guy, says he thinks the starters are going to play into the third quarter. I know Watkins is supposed to play, but only a little bit. He's not in play for you this week. I guess Tyrod then would be in play if you were to see that much. Probably don't like him as much as Cam, but he's a great guy to hedge off of Cam if you think Cam's going to be super heavily owned. He gets rushing points too. Not having Watkins for the whole 3 quarters or so definitely hurts, but he's still a good play. I like the running backs a lot. LaShawn McCoy only has 6 carries so far. He also has 5 targets that he put up for 5 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. And then Jonathan Williams has been the leading ball carrier with 16 carries. He has 61 yards, a touchdown, 2 targets, 2 receptions, 11 yards. I like both of those guys. What about you, Johnny?
Yeah, I like them both. And I know Jonathan Williams is like your boy, but
it's Aaron H's boy.
True. He was the first running back into the game after McCoy last week, and I think that says something. A lot of people are on Gillislee as sort of the second back, but I think they kind of know what Gillislee is, and I think that they would be happy for Jonathan Williams to beat him out for the number 2 role. And I think they're happy with who they have in McCoy and Gillislee and Williams as well, because they cut Carlos and got rid of him. My issue with Tyrod is that Watkins is really, Tyrod is good, but Watkins is really a lot of the reason why Tyrod was so good last year. So if he's only going to play a few snaps, then I'm not really interested in playing Watkins throwing to Marquise Goodwin and Robert Woods and Charles Clay.
Powell and Greg Little.
Yeah, so
scrubs, yeah.
You can sprinkle those. I mean, those wide receivers are all kind of like in play. Greg Little is like, I guess, making his resurgence. I don't know. He dropped a touchdown and then he caught a touchdown last week. Goodwin is seemingly getting a bigger and bigger role there so far this preseason. And then I think you could also make a case for Charles Clay at tight end, but I'm not really stoked about those guys. I'm much more excited about McCoy and Williams.
What's that, Johnny? You're breaking up.
Oh, I was just saying I wasn't really all that excited about the wide receivers. I'm much more into the running backs there.
Yeah, so I agree. Tight ends not in play either, right?
I mean, I guess you could make a case for Charles Clay, but I just don't really I don't really know how long he's going to play. But I guess he might be interesting if Sammy Watkins doesn't play much, I guess.
Did he blow up last year when Watkins didn't play? Remember he had those like 3 games where he was really good.
Yeah, when he was healthy, he was good, but that was pretty rare that he was actually healthy. He has all those knee issues.
All right, well, I kind of agree with you. I like Tyrod if he's playing into the third quarter, but nowhere near as much as Cam, and I like both these running backs. Next up, Washington Redskins. So I was gonna be all over Cousins because he didn't play last week, and all the beat reporters were saying, "Oh, he's not playing this week. That means next week he's gonna play a ton." And now their coaches are saying Cousins isn't gonna play next week. He's not gonna play. D. Jackson, Garcon are not gonna play next week. So you'd think Cousins is going to play a ton this week, but we're still getting conflicting reports.
Yeah. Gruden said something along the lines of he wants to see a good half from them, and that will determine how much depending how they play in the first half will determine when they come out, which didn't really even to me solidify that they're even going to play a whole half. I mean, especially a team that isn't even going to use their starters in week 4 at all. Just sort of says that he really has no interest in using them in the preseason if he doesn't have to. So if Cousins isn't even guaranteed a half, then he's not even close to as good of a quarterback play as other guys who are guaranteed a half and possibly a third quarter, because losing that quarter is really, really big.
Yeah. So I think now the big kind of must plays are the running backs. Matt Jones separated his shoulder, is not going to play. Chris Thompson has been banged up. It's really unlikely that he plays, which kind of just leaves us Rob Kelly and Keith Marshall.
Yeah, so Rob Kelly is right now the sort of the front runner for the number 2 job there. Or, if Matt Jones is dead, then the number 1 job. I know that everyone was in on Keith Marshall this offseason, but so far he's been pretty bad in the preseason, and he's been getting a lot of slack, a lot of shit from Gruden in training camp, bouncing runs outside that shouldn't be bounced out and trying to do too much. So, and there's also reports that he might not even make the team. So Keith Marshall is on a hot seat, and he's one of those guys that if he does something really stupid, he could just come out of the game. So Rob Kelly, I think we should see a lot of him, and he should play with the starters and possibly with the second string after that. So he's probably one of the top, if not the top, running back play, just because of the fact that he should see, in theory, the most volume of anyone.
Yeah, I think he's a top play for sure, and I completely get hedging with Marshall in a few lineups as well, which brings us to the wide receivers. So if the starter's going to play into the first half or possibly into the third quarter, that means a guy like Garcon is probably slightly in play, but even more so, really love Deshaun Jackson. And even still, even with everything, I love Rashad Ross.
Yeah.
So last year, he was the number 1 fantasy wide receiver, and it was by a lot. So last season, let me pull it up 1 second.
Yeah, but no, on Rashad Ross, go ahead.
He scored 76 points last year. The next closest receiver scored 50. And then this year, he's leading all wide receivers in preseason fantasy points with 30, which is only 3 more than the next person, but still.
Yeah, I mean, and to add on to that, Jamison Crowder is expected to sit. So those snaps should go to Ryan Grant and Rashad Ross, both. So I think you could probably use either of them, especially when Gruden is not really sure how long starters are going to play. I wouldn't be all that interested in playing Deshaun or Pierre. If they look at all gimpy or anything on a route, they're coming out of the game. So I'd be more interested in Grant and Ross.
You don't think Deshaun Jackson could be a good bet for an early one deep target that he takes to the house?
I would definitely play Deshaun over Pierre Garcon. Yeah. But I don't know. Gruden's comments just bother me with the starters there.
Yeah, a lot more uncertainty than you're hoping for. What about Jordan Reed, though?
When tight end is just such a piece of crap position in the preseason, if you can get an elite starter, which obviously Jordan Reed is the tight end too, then for half a game or maybe a little less, there's a chance that they can pay off the value in that short period of time. So yeah, I would be interested in Reed.
All right, you want to move on to the Steelers?
Yeah.
Okay. This is Steelers at the New Orleans Saints. I was looking at their top players in fantasy points, and really nothing has come out of that offense whatsoever. In fact, they've been terrible. They've been the team to put your fantasy defense up against. Their highest fantasy point scorer is Kobe Hamilton with 13 fantasy points. Landry Jones and Dustin Vaughn stink. So really it comes down to how much Ben's supposed to play. They also signed a quarterback named Brian Renner 5 days ago who's supposed to play. This looks like, again, like the team to play your defense again and not start anyone from.
Yeah, it totally depends on how much Ben plays. They said Ben will play, but we haven't heard how much he's going to play at all. If Ben was going to play like a half, then, you know, the Saints defense is still in play. But I would much rather play the Saints defense if Ben was only going to play like a quarter. But we really have no idea how long Ben is going to play. You can't play Ben at all. He's probably most likely to play the least amount of snaps of all the starting quarterbacks tomorrow. And, I mean, Tomlin has basically said that Ben doesn't really need any preseason reps, so I wouldn't be all that excited about him at all. Or really anyone there.
So I agree. I think people are going to get excited because they're going to find out that Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown are going to be playing their first snaps of the season, which is true. But I don't see them playing much at all. Week 3 preseason last year, Ben Roethlisberger only played 10 snaps. I see something like that happening again. I'm kind of not into him at all.
Yeah.
Or anyone on this team.
I think the only guy that would be in consideration would be maybe Eli Rogers.
Yeah.
Who was vying for that slot role. Probably should play with the starters and the second team, maybe.
Yeah, recently a Steelers beat guy said he's beaten out Sammy Coates.
Coates is absolute garbage. Dude,
yeah, he's
sucks.
bad. He's really bad. DHB maybe as like I don't know. I'm not excited about it though.
No, I think you could consider Rodgers, but that's I guess.
All right, moving on. Saints. We just said their defense could be in play because Steelers quarterbacks are Landry. One more time. I'm sorry. Landry Jones stinks. Probably the worst preseason quarterback over the past 2 years. Dustin Vaughn stinks. And then Brian Renner, 5 days of experience in Tomlin's offense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly.
Saints defense is bad. Don't get me wrong, but
doesn't matter.
What about their quarterback? So you just said Ben's probably going to play the least. Last year, week 3, Breeze only played 11 snaps. Said, Ben played 10. So that's not much.
The initial report is that Breeze is going to play the entire, or the starters are going to play the entire first half. I think I probably want to look into that a little more because Breeze is an older guy, and I'm not too confident in hearing that from a couple beats. But if Breeze does play the entire first half, then he's obviously in play because he's one of the few elite quarterback options, and a half from him is more valuable than a half from Jimmy Garoppolo or someone like that. But it also just makes it interesting for everyone else on that team because Breeze completely changes that offense and what they're able to do.
So here's my thinking. You said you think Ben plays the least amount. I think Aaron plays the least amount because he has, or I don't know. I think Aaron.
Those two.
Aaron, yeah, Ben. But with Breeze, you kind of have like chemistry problems with Fleener, and then a rookie wide receiver that you want heavily involved in Thomas. So maybe he sees more snaps than the other two. I don't know.
It's interesting, yeah, because they have a lot of changing of the guard there. You got Cooks, Thomas, Snead, and Coleman trying to figure out exactly who's playing what, and then Fleener who's sort of seemingly having some struggles in camp. So yeah, it's definitely possible that he plays more than we would expect.
If you're trying to figure out who your starting 3 wide receivers are, it kind of makes sense. Okay, let's get them some live reps preseason with their quarterback. and see who outperforms who. So maybe. I guess no. I wouldn't. At his age, I don't see him playing a whole half, but it's possible.
Yeah.
It's all narrative street right now.
And that's something that's something to read more about tomorrow for sure. I mean, if we get confirmation that Breeze is guaranteed a half, then that's legit. But so far, just kind of rumors.
Yeah, and everyone, make sure you follow Johnny and check Johnny's timeline tomorrow. He's going to be tweeting all this stuff out as he scours beat reporters' Twitter pages. So we can only do so much today, but a lot of the news comes out tomorrow, and Johnny's great at staying on top of that. So make sure you're following Johnny.
Yeah, and then so Ingram. I think Ingram is a really, really interesting running back play who I really like. He was super involved in the first preseason game?
Yeah, surprisingly so.
And then he had, some decent involvement in the second week. And if that continues and this is the dress rehearsal, then we're probably going to see a lot of him this week.
So he has 2 rushing touchdowns, which is nice. But Daniel Lasco leads the team in carries, and he also has 6 targets. Ingram only has 1 target so far, which is kind of disappointing for all my Ingram shares. But I think Lasco might be the play because I think he's fighting with Hightower for that backup job. And I think Ingram's role is pretty solidified. So I kind of think Lasco is interesting, though. I definitely could see Ingram running one in early. I don't love either of them, but I like both of them.
The real question is if the starters are going to play the first half, the whole first half, and then Spiller and Lasco and Hightower are going to split the second half, then I don't want any of those guys. But if we don't know what the starters are going to play, then I think you may be able to roll with Lasco. The concern with using those roster bubble guys sort of or competing for the backup role guys this week is that they're often splitting snaps in the second half, and that's rough. Unless we hear that they want to get a really long look at Lasco and he might get the whole second half to himself, then he's absolutely in play.
All right. Well, the wide receivers, is this finally Michael Thomas's breakout game? He's been getting a ton of noise, ton of chatter. Breeze has been talking him up.
Man, he was bad last week. But I mean, Breeze is talking him up a ton.
Is he playing with the starters?
He played 4 quarters last week. So, wow. I mean, I think he came out for a little bit, went back in, got yelled at type of stuff. But, I mean, they want him to be their quote unquote big slot guy, the Marcus Colston thing. And that was such an important role in the Saints offense. So if that's really what they're trying to get him to do, then you got to think they're going to give him every opportunity to do that. So, I mean, I'm going to be back on him, but I'm definitely not going to have quite the exposure that I had to him, last week.
Yeah, I think he was 3rd in snaps last week, but who was first? Brandon Coleman.
Yep,
he's a guy who Sean Payton came out last week and said has had a pedestrian camp. He led in snaps last week. He had 10 targets last week. It kind of seems clear that maybe he's not on the roster bubble, but it's kind of you need to prove yourself kind of thing. So maybe he sees a ton of usage again. I'm going to have a few lineups with him, I think.
Yeah, I think Coleman's interesting because he played so much, but I don't know. We'll I think Coleman and Thomas are the guys you probably want to look at there, though.
Yeah. I have one more for us.
Your boy Fleener?
No. I'm still on wide receivers. Okay. I was reading a beat report thing, and this guy said to keep an eye out this week for Tommy Lee Lewis. He's a 5'6", 168-pound wide receiver. He had 6 targets, 5 receptions, and 63 yards. Either last week or for the whole season. But he, according to one player on the team, it would be a mutiny if he didn't make the team, and he should get first team reps this week. I have no idea if it's true or not, but I'm probably gonna have like one share of him. Maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. The camp stories are tough to follow in the third week, because it's like you're wondering where those snaps are going to come from. I mean, if he's competing with like Coleman and Thomas, I don't know.
And what about Cooks? Is Cooks even in play if Breeze plays two quarters?
That's the thing too, is it's like we need to find out how long Fleener, Cooks, Ingram, and Breeze are going to play, because that's really what it relies on for a lot of those other guys. If they say Cooks isn't going to play, or Cooks is going to play 10 snaps or whatever, then like all the wide receivers are in play. But if they say Cooks is going to play the whole first half, and then they're going to split time between Thomas, Snead, and Coleman, then your camp standout boy is like the odd man out. But I don't know. I don't have a good read on the Saints and what they're doing yet, I feel like.
And then that brings us to Fleener.
Yeah, I'm interested in Fleener. I mean, he has to get in a rhythm sometime, right? This is like his chance.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of mouths to feed here.
It is. It's a really tough team to figure out.
You think we're gonna get much news that kind of clarifies the situation tomorrow? Or?
Luckily, with the Saints, they have a few good beat writers. So you got Nick Underhill's pretty good, so we might hear some stuff from him. So hopefully we get a better read on what exactly the plan is. I'll probably nag him on Twitter tomorrow and see if I can figure something out. But for now, it's tough. It's tough to figure out what exactly is going on there.
Yeah. Well, maybe a team with even less clarity. What about the Browns there, Johnny?
Well, real quick before I go into the Browns, I just want to plug.
You sell out! You fucking sell out!
Roto Tracker. So I just switched over to Roto Tracker this year. I used to do everything sort of with my own little spreadsheet. If you want to track your stats, your game selection, how you're doing, why, you can do all that with Roto Tracker. You import all your entries and figure out where you're at. So if you want to give them a shot, you can either, find the link in our YouTube, description, or if you want to just go to rototracker.com/DFS Power Hour.
Wait, is it DFS Power Hour or Power Hour DFS?
It's DFS Power Hour on their website.
All right.
And, give it a look. It's pretty cool. I mean, you can see all your stuff in graph form, all your percentages, and just kind of see how you're doing. And game selection is really big, so you can see what you're good at, what you're better at. But moving on to...
hold on. Do you use it?
I do use it.
Yeah. Should I use it?
I mean, if you want to.
Well, so what do you? All right. So you checked and you saw what games you're best at. What games are you best at?
So for me, in the preseason, pretty much
last year.
In the regular season, it's cash games. So one thing I really found in the regular season was that head-to-head games just don't offer the return that 50-50 games do. I found that the average scores were higher, my returns were lower, and that I was winning a lot more money in 50-50s than I was playing head-to-heads, and that was with the same exact lineups.
But all the sharks say play head-to-heads. It's safer.
Yeah, it's safer if you want to just end the season with a 5% ROI. But if you think you're actually a competitive player, then you should be playing 50-50s and maximizing your ROI.
All right, so it shows you what games you're best at. It shows you how much money you've made. Anything else?
Yeah, you can look at your graphs. You can see your best weeks when you had your spikes. You can look up players who you're good or bad against. So if you're somebody who plays a lot of head-to-heads, you can see that guy who's just like, eating your lunch every week, and you can avoid him.
Is it hard to use?
No, it's pretty easy, man. It's all there on the website. It's all through their HUD.
What's the name of the website? One more time.
RotoTracker.
Okay. And what's our link?
rototracker.com/DFS Power Hour.
All right, guys. If you want to support us, support the pod, definitely do this thing. I'm going to do it too. Johnny sold me. And also subscribe on iTunes and give us a review and all that good stuff if you love us and we make you money. All right, Cleveland Browns. Josh Gordon and Corey Coleman are both playing. So here's the thing.
Yes.
You know who RG3 has chemistry with? Josh Gordon. They played together at Baylor.
Yep.
You know who has a quad injury? Josh Gordon. You know who the Browns might possibly be shopping and might want to give him the spotlight this week? Josh Gordon.
Yep.
What are we doing? I have no idea.
You know who else played at Baylor?
Who?
Corey Coleman.
Wait, with RG3 though?
No, but similar systems. But anyways, yeah. So whether it's Narrative Street or not, either they're trying to get Gordon into regular season form, they're trying to trade Gordon, they just want to see what he's got. They want him to get hit. There's no reason for them to not just play the hell out of him. I just can't find a reason for him to not play a ton of time. And he's been playing with the starters all week, which really just kind of tells you that they're prepping him for a legitimate role in this game. He's going to be popular, but I think it's for good reason. And I think you can play Griffin too.
Yeah. What about so Pryor's in play, Gordon's in play, and Coleman's in play?
Yeah, I think the 3 wide receivers and Griffin are all in play.
Ugh.
It is gross.
There's like so many wide receivers that are already in play.
Yeah, it's true. But at least the Browns are focused in on those 3. They're competing for the 1, 2, 3 spot.
Yeah, before there was like 9 rookies and like a Seth DeValve who may or may not have been a wide receiver. So now it's just these 3 guys?
Yes, that seems to be where we're at.
It's still 3 guys we're supposed to get excited about on an RG3-led offense.
But the thing about them,
okay,
and I was talking with Pat Thorman about this earlier, is that they are all 3 like perfectly suited for what Griffin does. And it's that he throws he can throw bombs, man. And these guys are all burners.
But it's a Josh McCown revenge game.
Yeah, play. I don't know. I feel like I like all those guys.
Running backs are a mess. Tight ends are a mess. Fade both those.
Pretty much. Unless we hear something for the running backs, I wouldn't really know who to play.
All right. Let's go to the Buccaneers and give Pat Thorman his 3rd shout out of the day. I was reading his article. He talked about how he tipped me off to what Dirk Coder said. He said the starters are going to play into the 3rd quarter in Friday's preseason home game against the Browns. Yep. And then Doug Martin is banged up. He has a rib injury, which puts Charles Sims in play. And if the starters are playing into the 3rd quarter, Mike Evans is in play. And then I think ASJ is in play.
Yep.
And then Jameis, maybe a rebound game for Jameis. He sucked last week. He only completed 30% of his passes. He threw an interception. And what team for a rebound but the Browns and their terrible secondary?
Yeah, so Jameis is another one of those, he runs the ball type of quarterback. So
he's not a mobile quarterback.
He's not super mobile, but what did he have? 7 rushing touchdowns last year? 6 rushing touchdowns.
What? Did he?
Yeah, dude.
He had that like one amazing run where he like PFF recorded it as having like 6 missed tackles in like the 4th quarter with like 30 seconds left. I forget who that was against.
He's
I watched it.
He's like really drunk guy trying to get out of a crowd type mobile.
He runs like a white guy though.
That's what I'm saying. He's like Jay Cutler mobile, but like a little better.
Okay.
But yeah. So dude, he averaged he had 53 rushing attempts.
He had the second most rushing touchdowns in the league last year. He had 6. Wow.
Yeah. And he had 53 rushing attempts. So anyways, he's like sort of mobile. And if he plays into the second half, like into the third quarter, then he's definitely in play. I still like Cam better, but I think he's in play for sure.
Is Cam a better runner than Jameis?
I mean,
yeah.
But no, Sims. If Doug Martin sits, Sims is probably your top running back play. He catches the ball a ton. He's a decent runner. He'll probably be involved in the red zone. Good shot for a touchdown, I think, and a good shot for some catches. And then, I mean, beyond Evans and Vincent Jackson, the wide receivers there are just absolute shit. So I'm probably not even going to mess with them. But I think Austin Seferian-Jenkins is one of the top tight end plays on the slate because, I mean, I'm going to let you talk about your boy ASJ, Scott.
Yo, man, he's been my boy from the start, and his ADP has just been declining. And I've just been buying and buying it. Everyone's talking about Cameron Brate, and you know what? He stinks. He's just terrible. Preseason so far, ASJ's 5 targets, 5 receptions, 46 yards. Brate, 5 targets, 1 reception, 5 yards. Don't be scared off by Brate. ASJ's back in the good graces of Dirk Coder. Probably mispronouncing his name like I do everyone's name, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's common, but that's fine.
Yeah, dude. I think he's a solid play. I think I like Derby a little bit more. Bennett maybe a little bit more, and then I think right after that is ASJ.
Yeah, he's definitely in consideration for one of the better plays on the slate. That's for sure. And I guess Evans. Yes.
Oh yeah, no, he's locked into he's one of my top wide receivers, if not the top.
Yeah.
As much as I hate him,
right?
Don't care.
Yeah, he should play a lot. So that's about all I'm looking at there. Is probably Jameis, Evans, ASJ, and Sims.
Yeah.
Hard to see Vincent Jackson playing a whole lot at his age.
Yeah, no. I got a question for you. Is your buddy doing up notes on the podcast again, like he did last week?
I will find out. Probably.
We should tweet that out again. To everyone listening, his buddy did a write-up. So I know some of you are taking notes at home. He did that on an Excel spreadsheet and shared it last week. I know a lot of people found it super useful.
We'll push him to do it again.
All right. So the last game of the slate is Green Bay at 49ers. And the highlight here that we should keep coming back to for every guy we talk about is the Chip Kelly pace of play. So Chip Kelly runs a high-speed offense. He's run it a high-speed offense all preseason. What that means is a ton of snaps for his players, a ton of snaps for the opponent's players. So whatever John Crockett did last week, like if he had the same kind of percent of snaps, his total snaps, his total carries and stuff kind of jumps up as well. So Rodgers is going to play. We don't know how much. He said recently he feels like he doesn't need to play at all to feel ready for the NFL. He says, there's not much to gain from beating up on like bad, depleted second string defenses. He's a guy I don't think is going to play a ton, maybe like 10 to 12, 15 snaps. Not too excited about him. Jordy is not going to play. Hundley is not going to play, which leaves us with Joe Callahan and Marquise Williams. So if it's confirmed Rodgers only plays like a series, then I think the 49ers defense could be in play. Any thoughts on the quarterback situation there?
Yeah. If Hundley is out, 49ers D is definitely in play. If Hundley plays, I really don't know what to do there.
I'm sure he's already out.
He's already out?
Yeah.
Well, then if he's out, then you could definitely consider the 49ers defense because the guys after him are not good. So, but I mean, you can't play any of those guys at quarterback. So
none of those guys are in play.
No.
And then Jordy's not playing. What about Cobb and those guys? Nah, right?
I mean, yeah, you can't really. Good luck figuring out what they're doing there with the wide receivers. You want to play Jeff Janis in the preseason, but he's dead, and then the rest of them are kind of just all vying for little roles. And I mean, I guess you could consider Devontae Adams, but I don't really think you can ever feel comfortable playing him in any format.
No.
So that's kind of where you're at. He would be the only one you could really consider, and I would not be happy about it at all.
Yeah, he's not even on my notes. I have no interest in playing Adams.
I think it's Crockett. Crockett's who I'm looking at.
But Aberdarius is apparently the guy who has been taking command of that wide receiver 3 role. So I actually think he's more in play than Adams. But yeah, I agree. I like John Crockett. He's actually leading the team in targets.
Yeah, he's been getting tons of work, man.
And he's doing really well on the ground. It's either him or Lacey though, who plays first team.
That's the thing. If they say Rodgers is only going to play like a quarter, then I would be interested in Crockett.
Yeah,
I think. But if we have no idea, then I think you could probably play both. It just doesn't seem like the Packers really want to use their starters a whole lot, is what it feels like.
It does.
But I think a guy you can use is going to sound really gross, but is Jared Cook.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. Why?
So Cook he's back to practice. He's been doing well. So far, Rodgers seems to like him. So I have no problem using him to sort of get acquainted. I feel like Rodgers may target him a good bit on the first drive, and then I feel like Cook's probably going to keep playing. I probably don't like Cook as much as ASJ or the Patriots tight ends, but I think he's definitely someone you could consider.
I think he's in consideration. I don't think he's going to end up on maybe any of my rosters, but I get it. And GIFs have been coming out, all GIFs, again, mispronunciation, I don't know, have been showing him like catching some like crazy passes from Rodgers. It's possible. Did he play much at all last week? He had 2 catches.
I don't think he played a whole lot.
Yeah.
But I'm interested. I wouldn't say I'm excited.
No, honestly, you know who I'd play over him, I think? The tight end from our next matchup or our next game.
Yeah, he's definitely
Same
up
games,
there too.
Different team. Vance McDonald.
Yeah, Vance is definitely one of the top plays. It's an interesting week because I think there's a lot of good tight end plays, but Vance is way up there. He's been pretty heavily involved in the preseason.
6 targets, 5 receptions, 92 yards, and a touchdown. That's what he's done so far this preseason.
Yeah, he's been good. He's been Gabbert's like go-to. The concern is that if Kaepernick starts,
I'm hearing Gabbert is very likely to start, but Kaepernick is definitely going to get some play.
Right, and it's still a little bit. If Gabbert starts, Vance is a great tight end play. If Kaepernick starts, I don't know, because Vance is like Gabbert's guy, so far is what it seems like. So it's definitely a downgrade if it's Kaepernick, because Kaepernick was, if I remember right, he was a downgrade for Vernon Davis. He just wasn't really a tight end guy. So pay attention to that. But I like Vance.
Right? That was the narrative last year.
Yeah, he was like the check down king. He likes his tight ends.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I like Vance. Also, Hyde might be in play. They're getting the whole O-line back, Davis, Garnett, and Staley. Could be interesting,
yeah.
especially if
So
Rodgers doesn't play a lot.
yeah, I think you could. Yeah, Hyde's in play. We want to find out exactly what they're saying about Hyde. But if he's supposed to get some run, then absolutely. Because the Packers, if they're not using Rodgers, I don't see them really being all that competitive.
And then Torrey, I guess, was reading some beat, like 5 players to watch. One beat guessed that he was going to see extra time this week
Yeah.
to try and build chemistry with both quarterbacks.
Yep. I would be excited about some Kaepernick and Torrey Smith time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like the only guy he really has chemistry with too, right?
Yeah, and just the fact that Cap can throw not a great deep ball, but a better deep ball than Blaine Gabbert.
For sure.
So.
All right, you want to go over our top plays then?
Yeah. Let's do that.
All right. Derby at tight end.
Yeah, probably Derby and Bennett. I think are both really good plays.
Cam at QB.
QB is probably Cam.
Charles Sims RB1.
I think so. As long as Doug Martin's out. Yeah.
Kelly RB2.
Yes. Yeah, he's got it. He should see a ton.
Some Marshall maybe as a hedge on a few lineups.
Yeah, I would have some Marshall, but I'm not really all excited about him. He's supposedly been just awful.
Evans, wide receiver 1.
Probably Evans and Hogan I probably like about just as much.
All right. I'll take your word for it on Hogan. So I'll put Evans, wide receiver 1, Hogan, wide receiver 2. I'm gonna have to go back through my notes to find another wide receiver I like as much.
Yeah. As for the wide receiver 3, I think Kelvin Benjamin's interesting. The Browns wide receivers are interesting. Rashad Ross is interesting.
All right, Djax or Torrey?
Probably Torrey. I think he'll play more.
Torrey, okay.
Yeah.
So then we got flex and defense.
Crockett
maybe?
Yeah, I think Crockett's way up there too. In preseason, you really want to. I try to flex running backs more than I flex wide receivers, just because it seems to be a little more viable. But I think this week you could probably flex some wide receivers as well.
Defense, I'm thinking Saints.
Saints and the Niners
are
both really good plays. And then if we hear Garoppolo's not going to play much at all, then the Panthers D. But that's to be seen.
There's like a lot of like conditional plays here. Like guys who like if A, then B. So a lot of news needs to come out tomorrow. And again, check Johnny's timeline. Check the Power Hour DFS timeline.
Yeah, and I'll be tweeting all day tomorrow. So if you follow me, Scott should be tweeting as well. He's not as much of a fiend as I am, but he'll be doing it.
Yep.
So if you want to follow Scott at Scott Barrett DFB, and you can find me at John Proctor DFS.
And who's our first official sponsor ever?
Roto Tracker.
Nice. And what was the link?
rototracker.com/DFS Power Hour.
All right, is that it?
Yeah, I guess that's it. I just want to say that for everyone out there, Russell Wilson's currently outscoring Dak Prescott. So just wanted to say that. But all my other calls really sucked tonight. But this slate was absolute trash. tomorrow will be more fun, guys. There's going to be a lot more to figure out. Hopefully no one played too much on this slate because 2-game slates are garbage.
Yep.
Any final thoughts, Scott?
Nope. Thanks to everyone for listening, following, all that stuff. Appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow.